you're alive.
Okay, hey, it's Jack Kelly with Mike Tuller, Christine Bukassis. And today we have, again, the big story is what's happening in Europe with Russia invading the Ukraine. So we wrote a piece today for Forbes talking about the sanctions. And what I noticed going back to kind of 9/11 in the aftermath, when you had the Patriot Act, all of a sudden there are all these new rules, policies, regulations that we didn't have before. For instance, know your customer, KYC. You had to kind of double, triple check who is coming in to open up an account to make sure that they're not a terrorist, they're not organized crime, they're not up to bad things. And as time progressed, it was really interesting. You started to notice that instead of waging conventional wars, which has been done for centuries, the US started kind of levying sanctions on countries, on individuals, on entities and businesses that for whatever reason felt that they transgressed the rules and regulations and they had to be punished somehow. And to me, it seemed it became a new weapon in the arsenal. So instead of sending troops to a country, we'll enact sanctions. And that's kind of what's happening now, where given how volatile it is in Eastern Europe, there's a very real risk that there could be World War III. I think anybody who's been following closely, we all had that pit in our stomach that just one wrong move, something just goes awry. And before you know it, Russia's like, you did this, now we're going to attack you. In the back of our own minds, we have to worry about the nuclear bombs on both sides, on all sides. So it's a very frightening time. It's a very scary time. And so far, the Biden administration is going with the sanctions. And not everybody's in agreement with it. So with the sanctions, as I understand, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but the people in the audience who are compliance and legal and risk and audit, regulatory professionals will know it much better than I. And you can weigh in now or when we kind of put it on social media again after we kind of edit it and clean up. But it does seem that the rest of the world, not all of it, but most countries are on board with the US and they're doing sanctions as well. And the idea is that, hey, if we could financially cobble the oligarchs who support Putin, take away their yachts, their mansions, freeze their bank accounts, confiscate their wealth, get them off social media, then Putin might start thinking, all right, what do I do? If we don't have access to the bank accounts, if our ruble is down to like nothing, if our financial markets are in ruin, our economy is ruined, you'd probably see people revolt. The oligarchs are going to say, hey, I'm losing almost all my money. I can't take this. And I'm sure the ones who amassed billions of dollars after the Soviet Union collapsed, they're not a shy group of people. There's some tough folks over there. So that it seems, at least for now, they're trying to do this. But what's happening, what I'm noticing, and I'm curious what people think, is that we get very emotional. And we've seen a lot of Congress people say kind of wild things. For instance, Lindsey Graham tweeted something to the effect of, Mike, what was it like? Who's a Brutus here? Kind of intimating that they should take out, meaning, do away with Putin, which for someone who's sitting in the Senate, that seems a little much, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was, I don't know the exact quote, but he said, like, let's hope, or is there a Brutus in Russia that should, essentially, he was condoning, the assassination of Putin. And I'm sure a lot of people may feel that way, or, just really have hatred and innocent lives are being lost, taken in horrific war right now. But, in my opinion, we can't, at least advocate that and say that publicly, because that makes us as bad as Putin. Look at the criticism he got for like killing these journalists, with the nuclear material in London, a couple of other botched attempts. North Korea, Kim Jong-un or whoever he is, killed his brother in the airport. So, but we are living in very strange times. Our country's divided. I think a lot of what you were saying makes sense, and hopefully it will work. And I'll just leave off one last thought. The one thing to me that's different, where we've had sanctions in the past with Russia, against Iran, against North Korea, but really that's been us, maybe one or two other countries, but now it seems very much united, and it's a much stronger burden on Russia.
Christine, do you feel for the average Russian person who, and I don't know enough about their life, so this is just complete theory, who bristles under living in a kind of a dictatorship, having what they call like a strong man who's heading it up, who you can't challenge. And then if you have these sanctions, it comes down to that person who may have lost his or her job, livelihood, can't get enough food to eat. Is that fair too? That they don't want the war. They don't want their sons and daughters to go fight the battle, but yet they're being impacted. I mean, can you reconcile that, Christine? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's important to acknowledge that in addition to the Ukrainians, that the Russian people, the innocent Russian people, are also victims of Putin. He has failed his people, and now they're forced to deal with the ramifications of his actions. And, a lot of them, once these sanctions were put into place, they ran to the bank. They were on lines for hours without access to their money. Moscow warned them that they wouldn't, they might have trouble with like their Apple Pay, their Google Pay, their Samsung Pay. Visa and MasterCard blocked Russian banks from their networks. And I couldn't imagine, like, even as an American, like not having access to my own money. So I think it is important to acknowledge that these people are victims too. I think of, the brave people that protested in St. Petersburg. This is a war that they didn't want, and yet they're forced to deal with the ramifications of this, and it's serious.
As you're talking, I'm getting chills because I'm just trying to visualize. We've all seen some photos and videos of that, but just hearing that and thinking about if that happened to us, it's frightening. Because what do you do if your bank accounts are frozen? You don't have any money. You don't have a job, and then you got to worry about the same way we're worried about what Russia's doing. They're probably worried what's the U.S. going to do and other countries going to do. What a mess, huh?
Yeah, yes, and if Russia counters the U.S. and maybe other countries as well with cyber warfare, not only, okay, you can't go to and so they say they hit our banks, God forbid our electric grid, all potential. We've all heard about all the horrors that could happen. But if they hit our banks and we can't get cash out of ATMs, and then also the banking systems are down, you can't charge, you can't, debit. I don't know if the Apple Pay would work on smartphones. So it could potentially, run into like a real survivalist kind of, apocalypse where, people are, play it out, Jack.
No, it's frightening. I agree. No, I agree with you. It's just when you hear that, it's scary. It's really freaking scary.
We have seen a surge in cryptocurrency transactions, both within Russia and the Ukraine, but now that could all be affected with the US urging for these companies to stop allowing transactions on their crypto exchanges. So that's also another big topic, because the whole point of crypto is for it to be decentralized. So they have a hard decision as well as to their part in all of this as well.
Right. That's a very interesting thing, because we wrote about that yesterday for forums about it looked like the oligarchs and others were trying to kind of move their money into cryptocurrency exchanges, and where the government is basically saying, hey, no, you shouldn't be doing this. But the exchanges, as Christine, as you mentioned, that's the whole thing. We wanted Bitcoin and other digital assets because we didn't trust the government. Any government, we wanted to do this outside on our own. So we'd be kind of phony if then all of a sudden we go, okay, but on this time we're going to do it, because then they'll lose the trust of all their customers. So they're in a bind. They're in a tough spot.
Exactly. And now it is important to note that Russia still has access to $300 billion in foreign currency in countries like China, who hasn't imposed those sanctions. And I think they also have like 132 billion in gold and the Bank of Russia's own vaults as well, which I think there was a Harvard professor who said, Russia may be seriously hurt from sanctions, but it won't be enough to save Ukraine, which is sad.
Here's another thing that I haven't seen in the news. I don't know if Chris, Mike, you've seen this, but I remember during the financial crisis, the big concerns were this: when, do we let Lehman Brothers go under? Do we let Bear Stearns go under and other banks because of the contagion effect? So that if, let's say, one bank goes under and they go bankrupt, it's not just all the employees who lose the job and the company going under and all their vendors don't get paid. But then within the financial and banking system, there's such interaction. So what happens if, let's say, you're another bank and you're doing business with a big Russian bank that goes under? Does that mean all the money that you have with that other company is poof gone? You're never getting it back? So you got to wonder, well, then could there be domino effects so that if let's say if you follow to the logical conclusion with the sanctions that you just wipe out industries, it's not like Russia's just a silo by itself. They deal with so many different countries, other banks, other businesses, what have you. Does that then cause pain for innocent people everywhere? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not smart enough to know that, but it concerns me that we, as a country, we get so livid about everything and we can't have rational conversations, and and then everything is always politicized and everyone's arguing each other. So you can't do what we're doing here and just kind of brainstorm, hey, how things will go, what happens, without yelling and screaming at each other. Because it is probably, this has to be one of the most frightening things we've been through in a long time.
And oh, sorry, Mike, you can go.
Oh, okay. No, I think you're right, Jack. And as far as say if it's a U.S. bank or any other, outside of Russia bank that has investments and dealings in Russia, well, if their economy, continues to tank, whatever they have invested there, I would think, I don't know this, but I would think that, it's gone, poof, chalk it up to loss. But the contagion effect, to your point, after the mortgage crisis, in 08, 09, the Fed, at least in, I think, our banking system, did examinations, they had modeling, and supposedly they're designated as systemically important financial institutions. So there should be protections to avoid that domino effect. But, I'm not sure.
I don't know if they factor in this particular thing where I don't know anybody had it on their bingo, card or the drinking card where, okay, Russia's going to take right after we had COVID and then Delta and then Omicron, we're going to have World War III-ish, maybe. I don't think anyone had that on their radar. I'd be surprised if they did, or if they did. I've been watching Jerome Powell's testimony for the last couple of days, and they didn't seem to say that, oh yeah, we got it covered. We were planning on this. We have it. Don't worry, guys. I didn't hear that at all. In fact, what I did hear, just between us, is a lot of the Congress people who are on the financial committee don't seem to know much about finance. They don't seem to know what they're talking about. It was really scary. Like I was listening to them thinking, oh yeah, maybe they have answers. And not so. Very underwhelming.
That is unnerving, and it doesn't surprise me. And perhaps I will say should we bring back Barney Frank, and the other person, because you did have knowledgeable people, I would hope, back then. But I'm not one to be able to kind of judge that and give an educated opinion. I'm just not sure.
So now this is going to sound crass, but for the compliance personnel, for the anti-money laundering personnel, for the regulators, for the lawyers, for the financial folks, there's going to be a big burden placed on them, a lot of responsibility, because they're being tasked with looking when an account is open with a brokerage firm, with a bank, with a fintech company, with a crypto exchange, to see who is this, who's behind it. Is this a person who's on the sanction list or not the sanction list? Are they trying to avoid being on the sanction list? And let's be frank, if somebody is smart enough to be worth $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion, $10 billion, $20 billion, like these oligarchs. They're probably smart enough to find shell companies and shell companies of shell companies to kind of hide their money. So these folks are going to have a really tough job. But it's interesting, Mike, and you know this too from recruiting. A lot of the people who are in this space do it because they really believe in what they're doing. You know, they believe that they're on the front lines trying to make a difference and save people, to make sure that terrorists aren't putting money in the banks to do really awful things, and drug dealers aren't doing, going through the banks to do awful things. So this is a time where they're going to be on high alert. And this is going to sound weird saying it, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but it does feel, like I said, from when we started this conversation, that we're trying not to have as much as we did in the past, wars with guns and bombs and getting, boots on the ground in foreign countries. But it goes down to now, the people who are going to be the, money laundering experts, the sanctions experts, those kind of people who it's going to go down to, who are going to really watch out to see, hey, are we going to be watching the gate to make sure the wrong people don't come in?
Yeah, yes, I completely agree with that. And certainly there's going to be a lot more pressure, say, like on the compliance staff, the Treasury Department, those that oversee the sanctions, to make sure there are no mistakes, even in quiet times. One little, fat finger keystroke could, turn into, $500 million or $1 billion in error. Look what happened with Citibank. I'm not sure exactly, but they transferred a huge amount of money over, and the receiver just doesn't want to give it back. But I'll say this, I hope you're right, and this would be great if our world is evolving into other ways to fight than, violence, weapons, and killing. However, the human race in its entirety does not have a very good record as a peaceful race. And
it doesn't, right?
Yeah,
we don't.
Yeah. So I don't know.
What about this other aspect of it, where you're kind of canceling all Russians? Like, I think I read, I'm not sure if I have this back, some Russian opera singer or what have you, here, I can't remember where she was, that she didn't disavow Putin, or so boom, you're gone. Social media taking off anything about Russia, Russia TV. Now, is that good or bad?
I think we have to be a little more empathetic when it comes to the Russian people speaking out, because when you do dissent from Putin, he's known to take dangerous tactics. So even famous Russians in America, a lot of them have been attacked for not speaking out, but we forget that a lot of them have still family in Russia.
Right?
So yeah, I'm a little more considerate when it comes to that, I think.
Yeah, right. It's easy to say, yeah, you should speak out, but then I have a lot of relatives there and they're going to take it out on them. I'm here comfortable in the US, but I don't want to put them in harm's way. And we could see Putin is a danger. So it's not unreasonable to worry about them. But then also, if you cut off social media, I mean, this might be a dumb thing to ask, but like, you cut it off, then we're not going to know what they're doing or asking. Or like with Christine, when you were saying they're protesting, no one's going to see them protesting, so they're going to think no one's protesting. Yeah. So I'm not sure how I feel about this. Do you think it makes sense to kind of just completely cancel them across the board?
I think you have to look at it this way, at least this might be helpful. As far as now, being that everything is open, and for weeks Biden was kind of calling out Russia to supposedly make everyone know what they're doing. They're going to set up a false flag, etc. But I think initially, when the war first started, the reason these big tech firms shut down the social media was they felt that, at least in theory, that if they didn't, then the Russian narrative would play out. And perhaps Ukraine, would, Putin was saying, they're full of drug addicts and Nazis running Ukraine, so if they didn't, show what was out there, then it would, they would have taken Ukraine faster. I think it's a good thing that it's there, because the Russian people in Russia, certainly, hopefully maybe 50% or more, I think I heard some numbers, do know that they don't want war, what Putin's doing. As Christine said earlier, they're unhappy. You know, Putin has failed since the breakup of the Soviet Union to really, bring things up to speed. Look at a lot of other countries that have advanced. So it's really a complicated issue, and there's no easy answers.
What about this other piece? Did you guys see yesterday where, and I don't know exactly what happened with a nuclear plant in the Ukraine. You know, first they said there's a fire there, there's a leak there, not sure what the current status is. And this goes to where you have a camp of people saying, hey, Putin is this like just psychopath. Or is he a psychopath, but he's knows what he's doing? So clearly Russia is, what do they say? Russia's basically, you know, a gas station, or, you know, just oil with a kind of corrupt government. Oh, I'm not sure what they call it, but, you know, they're known for their oil and natural resources. And if you make all your money from oil and you have nuclear energy, you probably wouldn't want to have nuclear energy because that takes away from your business. So do you think they kind of did something with the Ukraine's nuclear plant, which powers, I think they said 25% of the country's energy, to show either A, we're going to take these out, or B, to make people start thinking, wow, nuclear energy is dangerous. So maybe we should just buy oil from Russia, or, you know, just keep, you know, getting oil. What do you think?
I don't even want to get into the mind of Putin. It's a dark place in there. Yeah, I don't, that's a good question. It's hard to know. Maybe he's like 5 steps ahead of us.
See, that's why, like, when I think it makes sense to just, for us collectively, particularly our leader, you know, our politicians, to think reasonably before they act, because it's very easy to say, yeah, he's a maniac, he's this, let's do this, let's do that. But how does that really help moving the ball forward? It makes you feel good, and maybe you're going to get more votes. But that could also muddy the waters. Instead of saying, let's just, let's take a step back and think this out. And if he's playing, you know, this game, we got to play the game better, and we got to really be thoughtful about it and not reactive and do something. Because listen, think about it in our own lives, right? When you kind of react out of emotion or fear, usually it's not a good response. And it doesn't bode well. So I don't know about you, but it feels a lot of that tension going on.
I do think that some good has come out of it. You know, these top billionaires have lost more than $80 billion. A third of their wealth has been wiped out. And I think Forbes, according to Forbes, 12 Russians have fallen off of the billionaires list. Yeah. A lot of this money has fueled the war. And also a lot of it, as Biden calls, our ill-begotten gains. They've gained that from their close connections with Putin. So for them, I do not feel bad. And I'm confident in the US government. You know, they've assembled it's called the Task Force Klepto Capture. And it will comprise of officers from the FBI, the IRS, the Homeland Security, and Secret Service. So it won't all fall on compliance officers. And they're ready to use various tools like crypto tracing, so that even if these crypto exchanges still allow transactions from Russians, we at least have protocol in place like the crypto tracing to see that. And then, you know, they've already captured, I think, 2 super yachts. And these billionaires are smart. Like you said, they've gotten rich from being smart, and, you know, they have good lawyers. And these Russian oligarchs are also thinking 2 steps ahead, because when the sanctions were put in place, they started moving their yachts toward the Maldives and Montenegro, because the Maldives doesn't have an extradition treaty with the US. So yeah, these guys are smart, but we're also getting great work done and already having captured 2 of the super yachts.
Now, once we capture super yachts, could we use it? You know, can we just, like, you know what, like New York could have a super yacht and, you know, go cruising around in other states?
What does happen with captured assets?
I don't know. I guess they resell it.
I believe I know at least when they would capture like cars and homes from
Yeah.
drug dealers and things that, in the past 10, 20 years, they do, I think, get rid of most of that on auction and
Yeah.
things like that.
Put it on
Government,
eBay.
they keep a car or two, in case the presidential limo breaks down. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Before we head out, one last question, probably the most important question. When Putin has his meetings, why does he have those ginormous desks where you're like a football field apart from each other? What is up with that?
I think he had COVID, or someone, but I'm frankly, I'm not sure. As Christine said, I don't want to delve into the mind of Putin, but did either of you hear something about that? That's why he was.
No, I don't know. It's so
Mm.
weird when you see him at one side of a desk and it's like, I don't know.
Yes, and it started with the meeting with Macron.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know.
Do you think if someone is too close, they could come, take them out? Is that what it is? You don't want someone too close?
Christine, what do you think?
It could be just a power move, because I know in my communications classes we've studied like the mind of a leader and certain things that they do to assert their leadership. So the distance could just have been like a psychological thing to show like, I'm better than you, I'm separate from you. So it could be more symbolic, I think.
Oh, gosh, what is that word during the former administration where Mike Pence paid particular attention to sort of like, I forget, framing or optics? That's the term, right?
Mhm.
So I think if that was what Putin was trying to do, I think his optics failed miserably the same way the war is going for them. Because, I heard some comment like, you're looking at Zelensky, of course, now as days go on, he's looking a little more beat up, more bags in his eyes, but, he just exuberating this, confidence, vibrance and all. And, Putin seems every time he's on camera, he looks like he's like a hostage, being taken where they're putting him out in front of the camera to show he's okay. He does not look happy. I'm at a loss for why.
Yeah. Well, this is frightening, tough, big topic, and I'm glad we're fortunate that we could have these conversations. And I think and if we are somewhat jocular talking about the big desks, there's no, we understand the gravity of it, and I think these are things we want to talk about and talk about intelligently and explore the different options and what's happening. And I think if we all do that, it makes us better, not just for this big issue, but other issues that come along, so that we can hopefully have smart results. And we'll keep you posted with different developments. It's really wild. I don't know what happened today, but I don't know about you folks, but how they said during the pandemic, and made people reassess their lives, reevaluate the lives. You had the great not only the great resignation, you fill in the blank about kind of just rethinking things. I wonder if this is going to be another one of those, that, let's say, God willing, we get through this and everything's okay. But again, it makes you say, wait, life is really short and anything could happen. What am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my job? What am I doing with my career? I got to do something else. So I wonder if we're going to have that epiphany too, as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And as in all terrible situations and tragedies, we all look for silver linings. Quite often they do exist. And yeah, I'm with you on that, Jack.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I know this is a very serious topic. I think we're really fortunate that we could do this on LinkedIn and have an open and honest dialogue. And for people who want to comment, anything is game to kind of share your thoughts. Usually what we'll do is we go live, but then we'll kind of edit it and put it on social media and more cleaned up. So if you want to kind of comment on that, give your opinions, give your thoughts, you want to engage, feel free. I think this is something we all want to talk about and get it off our chest and brainstorm and sometimes just get comfort in hearing how other people feel. So really appreciate that we could have this and you're watching. So thank you very much, everyone. Mike, Christine, thanks. Any last words before we head out?
What you were referring to, that's a great realization. That's
Great
what it's
realization,
called.
yes. Yeah. It's tough stuff. Tough stuff. Well, everyone, try to have a great weekend, and hopefully, God willing, everything will be okay. And we'll see you on Monday.
Bye.
Bye.